Hey everyone, this is Brett Endy's The Dog Savant, thedogsavant.com. So I want to talk today about how and why dogs can resist training. It's a pretty common thing, and a lot of times it's misinterpreted as something different than what it is. And it is something that at times you have to work through in order to, progress in your training, get through a holding pattern, in the work you're doing with a dog, or even just kind of get the relationship on the right page in terms of, how the dog and owner are connecting with each other in their everyday lives. So what is resistance? Where does it come from? A lot of people think their dogs are defying them, they're doing things on purpose, they're mad at them or acting out. And, to a point, they do have a psychology that compensates, but that's what it is. It's a very basic thing. It's like the way like a level would work. Well, kind of everything has to balance out until it's at an even point, versus humans are driven more by their egos. Like if I was going to do something shitty to a person, I would kind of be aware that I was doing it, for ulterior reasons that would suit my ego, psychology, whatnot. Where dogs, it's just kind of what works or what doesn't work based on their wiring, history, and their instincts and the relationship they have with their primaries. So what is resistance to training? It's a dog that's not going to listen. It's a dog that acts in a way to oppose you telling them what to do. So I'll talk about maybe why that happens in general, or some of the main reasons why that happens, and then we'll talk about actually how that can manifest in an actual, what you'd see in the response from the dog. So why does a dog resist training? Well, in adult dogs, a lot of times it could be because their life's history was something different than that, meaning they had always had to over-assess, assume, anticipate, become stimulated in the presence of humans in our shared, interactions, where that was their norm. And then somebody telling them otherwise, even if it is, of course, a means to them being happier, calmer, more peaceful, feeling a human is guiding them through life instead of taking it all on, that can be scary. I mean, look, I'm trying to eat better and exercise more. I guess I feel better, but I'm not, because it's not what I'm used to. I like sugar, and sugar drives me through a day. And although my body isn't feeling great, my mental state does, because that's what I'm comfortable with. Look, people can live being comfortable in the most horrid of conditions, for humans. So it wouldn't be much different for dogs to kind of, sitting in their anxiety or the reactivity, for life, if that's what they thought was keeping them alive another day. Again, it's not that they want to be this way. They're not purposely defying, as I said before. It's just this is what they thought was their wheelhouse of how to get all their needs and resources met, and showing them a different game plan can be scary. So we have to work that through. Sometimes it's just something as simple as the dogs are used to acting one way, where it's not so terrible, but it's something that I would say is not appropriate in their behaviors. And then when we try to ask them to do something different, they really can think that they're going to die, and that's the end of life here. So what I want to do is show a dog that we actually are able to keep them safe and secure through training. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. So what does that mean? That means that a dog has to feel we're one step ahead of them. I'll give a perfect example. Working with a puppy. It's a really sweet, smart dog, but what I see is that whenever we do training, we're still on the flat collar, because if we put any kind of real, slip collar, star mark collar on a dog, she screams bloody murder, and I'm just not going there. And that's getting to how do these dogs will be very extreme sometimes in their opposition to a human taking that leadership position. So you'll get sometimes a vocalization. You'll get a dog screaming and resisting and alligator rolling or grabbing the leash or biting the leash. And I mean, I've seen dogs poop themselves and their anal glands, spray. And it's just this, oh my God, is this going to be the end because a human's taking control? And I've never experienced that. And then after a minute or two, they realize that everything's fine. They'll start letting go of that bubble of control that you had to pop, to get through to them. And then we move forward. But what happens is sometimes is that I can do that, but the owner is not backing it up. So the owner is allowing the dog to still make these impulsive, independent moves without the owner's intervention or guidance. So, example is like when you come home and a dog rushes up to you and you pet him, or when you sit on the couch and they slingshot in and they're here by your legs or on the couch with you and you're rewarding them. And then when you ask them not to have an impulse, when you're trying to get them not to rush out the door, when you see another person or dog on a walk, you teach them not to lunge or react. It's very difficult for them to see how one thing can't work in another situation. As far as if I'm being impulsive at a time that even we as humans don't really mind if a dog is overreacting in the home environment, they, being very all or none thinkers, are going to carry it over to that greater situation. And that's what I try to express, is that if you can take an all or none approach for their benefit, where they're becoming led and calm, and you're being one step ahead of their impulses and showing them that awareness that when I come home, I'm going to guide you to get that attention instead of you just going for it. You don't get that type of resistance when you start actually working it through. But what I find are some cases where I'm doing pretty good work, I'm pretty consistent with the dogs, but then when I keep coming back, the dogs are still resisting training, getting frustrated with it, almost scared by it. And it's really because what I'm doing is so the opposite of what the owners are willing to do. And it's not that I'm tougher or I'm meaner. Yes, I'm more consistent, but if anything, I'm calm. But what I want from them is not what the owners are wanting. And that is really going to be tricky for a dog to trust, because as animals, when they feel a human's guiding them, it's got to be the complete opposite of how they had previous thought they were, existing or surviving or getting their needs met. And that's really the personality type of most dogs that become candidates for training. They're very forward in their thinking. They're over anticipating, over analyzing, because we're humans. We're just living a separate life from them, and we don't always have the time to be showing them. But if we have training goals as a priority, it's really worth, taking a few minutes here and there, being more emotionally disciplined and not giving into everything that feels good or that we're used to doing for the sake of growth, for the sake of maybe being able to indulge in those things, but the dog has a much better impulse control plan in place. I hope that makes sense. A little distracted here, so I might have gone a little off course. But, it's a really common thing. A lot of people are afraid to breach that control because they think they're hurting the dog or they're traumatizing it. And what I find is that's a necessary, kind of step to their ultimate growth. Just like anything, there's always going to be some growing pains, but we have to do it in a skillful way, understand why it's happening, and put in place everything we can to kind of move forward every time we engage the dog, because otherwise you get a dog that's going to see training as an aversive, something that they should resist when they see it, and then the training becomes more stressful than it's worth. So either you engage it, full spectrum, wholeheartedly, as much as they're willing to be caught up in everyday life, to match it, help them see a new, calmer, more well-led game plan. And then through that, you don't have to put in the work or the awareness, but you have to be very consistent to get the nose in the air. You have to be really clear that you are willing to match their enthusiasm for life with this need to guide them through these times where their impulses are getting the best of them. Again, thanks for watching. Have a good day.